Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a Premier League presentation bringing you guys a game between Evil Geniuses and RoX.KIS. That's Radical Online Extremists, Kaspersky Internet Securities, going on into this best of one series to see who's going to be advancing forward to take on Mouse Sports in another best of one just in a little bit here. Thank you guys so much for tuning on in. Hopefully you've enjoyed the games thus far, and yeah, it's been exciting Dota. A lot of awesome plays, specifically from the supports. Shout out to you guys that generally don't get all the credit, but moving on forward, we'll see what awesome plays we have in store for us in this matchup here. I'm myself and Blaze, joined by Triumph. How's it going, man?
It's pretty good. I'm wearing pants. It's freaking cold over here. Now we do the wristband out straight away as well as the keeper light. No real surprise there, of course. EG can do some pretty mean stuff with the keeper light. And I'm sure both of these teams are champing at the bit to get a bit of a revenge in against Mouse Sports, of course. Mouse Sports walking away with a much coveted prize of attending the TI3 in first spot there for the Western qualifiers. But I think it'd be nice for either of these teams to get some payback against them in a minute. But looks like RoX, they're just going to wait a little while, figure out this second ban here. And I'm just interested to see what EG go with here. I mean, I see them play a lot. Like, EG, it really depends what player they put on what hero. Like, I see them play a ton of Lifestealer, but how they use it really gets changed around quite frequently, depending on whether or not they've got Bambo playing it, or whether or not they've got Jo playing that. If they have Bambo on that, if they end up putting Bambo on that lifestyle, it's more than likely that they'll run an offensive try and shut down whatever RoX has got up their sleeve. That said, the RoX, they do favour putting in those hard carries, but at the same time they play those really super aggressive early lineups, like bringing Enchantress and the Juggernaut into the same lineup for some really super early aggressive push power.
Exactly that. So they are just able to jump in and kind of get an early or advantage is their intention here to get a lot more gold accrued very, very rapidly, so they can get one or two very item-reliant heroes, and suddenly they break out, and 12, 15 minutes in the game, they can suddenly have a whole new set of items, especially if they get the last hits on the towers, and that could be very, very important in advancing their strategies when they go for a little bit greedy, but a very, very effective in the pushing sense. So we'll see first pick come out for RoX. They're going to go for Nature's Prophet here, and that's going to give them a lot of global presence, a lot of mobility, and a little bit of that push on their side as well. So that's going to be rather instrumental. The question is how they're going to lane it here. Dread plays them always on the off lane or the jungle, and it just depends on how much pressure Evil Genius's tri-lane is going to push out, that it's going to either force him to D-lane, or if he's either way, he's going to find some gold or experience on that jungle scenario. So a lot of different options here, but for right now, a great all-around hero that can turn little early skirmishes, especially 3v3s, to your advantage with the fact that you can just add in one extra person to deliver some right clicks, possibly a sprout, and turn things around.
And also mentioning the early skirmishes, he also works really nicely. Obviously, of course, Lifesteal, a bit of flavour of the month at the moment. Just getting those infest bombs and basically Nature's Prophet turning a 2v2 into a 4v2. It is very, very difficult to deal with those unexpected counter ganks coming out of that. But we do see Chen being picked up by Evil Geniuses as well as a Shadow Demon. This to me says defensive. Well, defensive dual lane plus Chen jungling, which is sort of almost a try-in, but just more efficient at that farming. So we'll see what RoX have in mind, RoX.KIS have in mind here to play up against that. I mean, if if Nature's Prophet does go on in that off lane, he will be quite vulnerable to getting jumped. There's not much you can do to get away when you've got Chen as well as a Shadow Demon trying to lock him down.
Yeah, really, really good combo to start things off with. Really, this is all about push. I mean, you're talking about it, and both teams going for it really hardcore here. We see the Leshrac, we see the Enchantress, and this is going to make lanes very interesting because the laning phase itself is going to break down very rapidly. I expect the tier 1s on both the Radiant's top and the Dire's bottom to drop down within the first 2 to 3 minutes of the game, most likely. The Shadow Demon Chen put out a lot of pressure because of the disruption setting up the Chen's creeps like the Hellbear or the Centaur, and setting up that kind of damage really, really quickly early on. If they can get just one quick pick off, it means that they can put in at least half the tower's HP really, really quickly, and that just works so well when you have an early Basilius on some of those early agility carries like Gyro and things along those lines. It'll be interesting. But picking up the Darkseer here, I really like it because it gives them some flexibility. They can either use the Iron Shield to counter push a little bit, or they can just send Darkseer in the jungle and not really move him out of that until he's about level 3, level 4, and his tier 1's already dropped, so you can kind of get some safe experience near close to his tier 2. Either way, Leshrac and Enchantress, strong pickups as well.
I mean, both these teams have so much potential to bust down those offlane towers extremely quickly. I mean, if you remember going back years, just watching Na'Vi take multiple towers by the 3-minute mark, this is the kind of lineup that can do that on both sides. They can just tear down these towers extremely efficiently, especially ROX. I mean, they've got Nature's Prophet, Leshrac, and Enchantress in the same lineup. That just screams you are losing towers left, right, and center. That said, of course, they do have the Darkseer who can try and to hold it off for a little while if they put him in the off lane. But you know, for all the Iron Shells in the world, I don't think he can try and hold it off that well. But I do like the Tinker Band as well. Evil Geniuses. The ROX is saying, you know what, we've got some map mobility on our side, we've got the push power on our side, let's not let EG pick up their own map mobility and just continual counter pushing around the map there with the Tinker, obviously flying around with his boots of travel and machine spam.
Yeah, exactly that. So it can be a pretty big impact. They're worried about the turtle presence of the Evil Geniuses. If they want to go and pick up that Tinker, they get the spam of March Machine so that you can't take high ground for a very substantial portion of the game, burning down Enchantress's creeps, the Nature's Call creeps. And along with that, Tinker's one of those heroes that, as I mentioned, benefit a lot from early tower kills, because if they can get the boots travels that much more rapidly because of a single tower dropping down, then suddenly they become a player that just really, really makes an impact on the map as a whole. So it is something they were worried about, and they don't want to have to commit early wards to the Ancients, so on and so forth. So they banned that out, as well as a couple of good solos of the Queen of Pain and the Magnus. So taking them out there, as Evil Geniuses still have only an offlane and 2 supports picked up, but that leaves the carries wide open. Neither team banning them out other than the Gyrocopter means pretty much either team will get the pick of the litter there.
We'll see what they've got in mind. EG though, Clockwork banned out. Oh wow, Queen of Pain along with the Magnus. So a lot of good counter initiation heroes being banned up by both teams. Of course, Clockwork completely disrupt a push just by jumping in there, getting the hook in, getting the cogs out, and just isolating someone very efficiently. Same time, you know, Magnus as well, just skewering in and then RPing a whole bunch of heroes. Very, very scary stuff to have to deal with. So a lot of these counter initiation heroes being dealt, or getting dealt out of the pack. But it looks like Dazzle being picked. Look at this mass heal run up here from ROX. Wow. And I mean, something also people often overlook is the fact that his ult, that's a lot of bonus armor or even negative armor to whatever team gets smacked around by it. So I mean, that's a lot of extra damage in the early mid game as well. ROX with an unconventional up, I think this has definitely got potential. Of course, Dazzle as well can push down waves very quickly, of course, just spamming his heal, not only helping out his teammates, but of course just bursting those waves very, very quickly. So we'll see what they do.
Yeah, it kind of feels like one way or another this game is going to end very, very quickly. Like, the amount of huge emphasis on push is ridiculous here. Wild Axes will play out some AoE on the creeps. The Chen creeps are going to be substantial and bringing down towers quickly. And, yeah, I'm just really, really scared that RoX might be able to seal the deal in this game in like 10 minutes time, taking out about 4 towers very, very quickly. The heal from Dazzle, from the Enchantresses, I completely forgot Nature's Attendants, is going to be really, really impactful. So you keep your creeps up that are kind of tanking up the tower early on. You can be looking for early towers, early Roshan, and they're just going balls deep. They're going all the way in. Omni Knight is going to be picked up here, and they just have this huge, they want to fight early, they want to fight hard, and they don't even care if a tower is involved. They're just going to be able to bring people down quickly. And this could be bad for Evil Geniuses. Their Darkseer and Beastmaster don't really make nearly as much of an impact prior to level 6 as when they get their ultimate, but finishing up their lineup with a Drow Ranger pick. And
what is going on here?
I don't know exactly what the plan is for this game. This is, my hands are up in the air, because it's just like, could be so many different things. I'm really, really perplexed as far as how the Drow Ranger fits into it, other than an amazing silence to lock down the Omni Knight and Dazzle. If you can silence them up, kill them before their heals come out, it's going to be very impactful. But either way, really, really crazy picks back and forth.
I was about to say I almost want to see old Chinese Dota lineup where they go for the solo mid ancient apparition. They just throw him down the mid, get those early levels, and then just use his ult to completely shut down any kind of heal that you try and throw out. It's very, very devastating. Of course, if you can get him ahead of the pack in terms of levels, he can completely decimate teams with a nicely placed Ice Blast. That said, we'll see what they've got in mind with the Drow. Maybe they just want to buy some time here. Obviously, I mean, if they're trying to play for time here with the Drow Ranger, it's just going to be very dangerous, because you look at that lineup there from RoX.KIS. Dear God, the Omni Knight as well as the Omni Knight, you've got the Dazzle, you've got the Enchantress, you've got so much pushing power and the ability to sustain it. Of course, all these heroes are going to be spamming Arcane Boots more than likely, and then you've got Leshrac there for the punch to knock out those towers, and the mobility for Nature's Prophet. I mean, if you try and go 5-man to stop him, to stop the push, then Nature's Prophet just says, you know, I'm going to the top lane and I'm going to push that one instead, while you guys are all hanging around bottom. But that said, I mean, at the very least, I mean, they've got the Drow. She's a natural. I'm going to say one thing. She's a natural diffuser blade carrier at the very least. Like, she can quite easily justify grabbing a diffusal blade and putting it to good use. And that is something they really will want to have against the Omni Knight.
The Drow Ranger can?
Yeah, I mean, she can work with it. I mean, it's not a bad item on her, especially if it's a direct counter to Omni Knight to mess up his spells. I mean, if you're knocking off his ultimate on a target priority hero, there's no real reason not to go for it.
Yeah, I definitely think it's a possibility. It's definitely something she could look into the future. I wouldn't call her a natural carrier, since of course the
I
Frost
suppose
Arrows.
something more like Murano would be a better choice for that. But yeah, I think they want the late game power there.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it's possible. I definitely think that might be something that is on his shopping list there, to pick up the Diffusal and make a big impact by nullifying those Guardian Angels, the Repels, whatever they need to. Actually, still coming on Bambo. That's going to be frustrating for him as he loses the double damage and takes a few right clicks in turn, so he's going to lose a huge chunk of health and actually going for that big poison. They're going to go in for the Surge, nullifying the slowing effect, but Bambo forced to skill up the Surge defensively. Going to have to pop off a salve as well, as there's so much harassment early with that rune pickup from BZZ. And it's interesting to see him pick up the Lesh. We have seen a lot of Russian teams farm the Lesh rack in the past, but in this situation here, of course, he generally goes for those right-click carries, and in this instance is just going to rely more so on skill shot usage, and we'll see how it plays on out.
I mean, I'm going to say this match, I really think the Drow is going to go for that Diffusal Blade, just because if we look at the lineup, she doesn't really need to worry about ganks, like super hard ganks here. She doesn't need to worry about getting slammed by some powerhouse ganking setup, so she doesn't really need some sort of escape mech, doesn't really need to bust out the really early BKB to keep herself alive. I think she can very easily justify a Diffusal Blade early up if she really wants to, because she doesn't have to worry about those power stuns or anything. You've got exactly one good stun on the enemy team, and that's Leshrac.
Yeah, but right now, at least ranking up the Frost Arrows, we'll be able to pick up a couple points. She's gonna be focusing on that silence pretty early, compared to just picking up like 1 point at level 4. I think she's actually gonna put some direct points into that. And if she leaves her Frost Arrows as just rank 1, and then focuses on the silence, yeah, Diffusal will be that much more promising because you're not worrying about stacking the orbs. But in general, that's going to be for the mid game. Right now, the early game is where all the pressure is going to come out. Demon, already picking up his bottle on the mid lane, is going to be able to put some aggressive pressure on Omni Knight, who has already used his heal a couple times over for CS primarily. So, yeah, Solo is picking up 5 CS for himself, but now it has kind of run dry and has to get that bottle out to himself ASAP, as he is doing so with his little piggy courier there. Beyond that, bottom lane, not enough push presence just yet, but the 2 Hellbears ready to rock and roll, and they have enough gold for the Basilius. She's going over to the side shop right now, and I think Yul will be picking up that aura to try to go for some hardcore push up against Bambo on the bottom lane.
In fact, yeah, she's just coming there. She didn't quite manage to get the nuke off there with the second Hellbear there, just trying to slam down those creeps just so they can get that push happening in a second. It looks like they are going to gun for it in a second there, as it looks like Leshrac definitely going to be played in that carry role, of course, with BZZ is perfect running him. He can farm up a storm indeed. Now we've got Solo in the mid lane, does manage to snag himself an illusion rune there. Should be able to mess up Beastmaster, although Beastmaster, in fact, I think he's just going to... Yeah, there we go. The Crow is coming out here to fetch his bottles just so he can get those wild axes back up and running.
Yeah, before Mandota down on bottom, or well, once the Enchantress arrives, anyways, picking up another creep there, the Centaur, for the aura, for the tank durability. They're going to be able to put pressure on this tier 1. So many range creeps involved. Bambo actually zooming on in just to walk right back on out, wasting a couple spells, trying to force them back, but there's no hope for that. They pop off the fortification with the Edict chipping away. Meanwhile, up on top, the same thing happening here. They see exactly what's going on down bottom, like, screw it, we have a lot of right-click damage, we'll do it ourselves. And it looks like they're both going to fall almost simultaneously here. Tier 1 will go to Enchantress for the last hit for the Radiant, and doing some pressure to Bambo. Won't get the kill or anything, but still forcing him to use Tango after Tango after Tango. In the meantime, we do see Drow Ranger picking up the last hit on the tower up top.
Should also mention that Fear now jumps to the bottom lane, just trying to hold off this push. I don't think there's much hope, though. The sustain here from the Radiant side is far too much. It's particular Shrek, pop and E. I think it was a poorly timed Edict. Didn't really have the creep wave to back him up there. So
actually, BZZ has to watch himself. I mean, the Shadow Poison is only rank 1, and Dazzle certainly is healing him, but that's going to take a huge chunk of HP. So there's a Nature Tendency to kind of nullify that, though, I guess.
He's also sitting on a health potion. I mean, there's so much regen they haven't burned through just yet, so they should be just fine, I think. Should also mention, Enchantress did pick up some early Sentry Wards just to try and prevent blocks, but it looks like Dread may be in some trouble here. He's a little stuck. No, it'll be fine.
Yeah, a little bit of damage going that direction here. Right now, J.O.'s happy to farm out. Bassi has been turned off here. He's not looking to push, just to get some extra cash early on to go for one core item before they have to go for kind of 5v5 very, very early on. But should be said that the Iron Shells are now rank 2 and are doing a little bit of counter push damage along with that Fear is kind of making his mark on the bottom lane as well. So they've been forced back, and one big limitation for RoX.KIS's push is the limited duration of enchant at early ranks. Right now, it is It's always going to be 80 seconds, but the cooldown makes it so she only brings out like 1 or 2 creeps, and even then they're going to be already have their time taken away. So they expire, they die to the tower, whatever. It means that they're not going to be able to continue that tier 2 push as aggressively, and now we're just kind of taking the tier 1 and falling back from there, which, you know, you don't want to relent on the pressure when you have such an aggressive push-oriented lineup. We do see Solo and Demon dueling it out right here. Actually going for the double damage. This is going to be bad for Demon, but no more right clicks coming out as there is going to be that gigantic creep wave that he has to deal with here, going for another heal as soon as it comes off, I believe.
There we go, he's going to nuke that down. It doesn't actually manage to nuke down the creep wave as it backs off for a second there, but he should be fine. Has plenty of bottle charges. Bottle charges. It looks like a smoke up here from Jarl with his Enchantress is going to look for a bit of a gank here on Fear. Fear already backing off though. I was just wondering if they were going to actually rotate mid, try and bust down the mid tower there with the power of Omni Knight as well, as it looks like Bambo is going back to the suicide lane. I thought he might just duck into the jungle, try and clean up some of those creep stacks which have been made available for him.
But for right now, just kind of falling back to farming. We do see, as far as last hits go, that Omni Knight's just barely on top, but Jo right behind him here, and he's of course going to be able to do the most direct, make the most direct impact out of that farm output. The one thing that's kind of surprising is Beastmaster doing so poorly right now, using his access to the best of his ability, but as a whole, Demon just getting outlaned. Solo doing so much more with the Bottle Crow, with the continuous heal bombs that have connected, I believe, at least 3 times. So Beastmaster kind of being forced out a little bit, and he is falling behind on CS as a result. Now we do see on bottom the tower pressure is coming on in with that Wild Wing, just burning down creep, burning down illusions, whatever, just making its impact so that they can continue to push. But Bambo spamming out those Ion Shells is able to hold the line with the help of Fear on the Shadow Demon.
A bit of a mistake there from Enchantress. Didn't need to put the Wildkin that close. I mean, it's fairly long range there on the Whirlwind. It's one of the more annoying things to deal with, in fact, having that Whirlwind just chase you around while you're trying to lane defend a tower. And when we see heroes like Enchantress or Chen pick up multiple Wildkin War Cheese, they, in this early phase, like between the 10-15 minute mark, they can completely shred defenses. We see the Raw go down for Demon. Will manage to snag himself an invisibility run and back off there.
Actually trying to turn things around. He does have the invis, but not sure about sentries at the moment.
Oh, they do. Y'all has some. Oh no.
They're not dropping it yet, though. They don't know that if he's too close or not. But anyways, in this position here, they don't have the detection. They just now got the ensnare cooldown back up, so didn't work out for them. But one thing I gotta say is a bit of a mistake on Yul's part. He could have used either himself or the Dark Troll Summoners A-click to deny the rune. Instead, there's Invisible Ion Shell and Demon doing a lot of harassment damage, and Business is taking a lot right here. Now they have to worry about the sentries. They know that there's an Ion Shell nearby. They have to in this situation, but now going on in, surging on through. They get the disruption. Double Ion Shell about to make its mark here. The axes, there's the first blood. Finally drawn by Yul. Dread comes on in, but he's only got 200 HP. He might be sacrificing himself here. Vons gets a nice rank 2 Shadow Wave off to heal everything up, and here's Omni Knight in the mix of things. No Guardian Angel, though. Just the heals, just the repels, enough to bring down Demon, but BZZ getting right-click down pretty hardcore. Will fall back from here. Vonscore with a nice heal bomb going across. Fear is going to be the one to right-click down, and Solo connects with another Purification. Brings down the Darkseer, now chasing down onto the Shadow Demon for a double kill for Solo. Yes, they did give up the first blood, but in the end, they even it out 3-3.
I was actually very surprised that RoX.KIS didn't charge the Shrek back in and heal bomb him instead. That was actually fairly surprising to me. Is Drow now going to make Omni Knight pay with some serious damage here, as it looks like he will throw up his repel to try and keep that off him as he barely gets away there. I think this just goes to show how much damage Drow can dish out early on, especially Omni Knight just not having the armor to tank that damage. He's getting absolutely shredded there, but I think a series of misplays there, to be honest. It looks like RoX.KIS did not notice the fact that they were being burned out of the Ion Shell. I mean, if they realized, I'm sure they would have figured it out immediately, because they knew the Beastmaster picked up that invisibility rune. They would have thrown down the counter ward straight away to spot him up, but in the end took a lot of damage for that, got split up, and in the end just got drilled down quite badly. And again, also losing BZZ is perfect during that skirmish as well, which is kind of painful, as Leshrac does want to get rolling fairly early on, and he's not that tanky yet, still only rocking the Arcane Boots, as well as it looks like he's going for drums. I expect him to probably go with the old, split up the Arcane Boots a little bit later, and grab up that Soul Booster instead.
Yeah, definite possibility here. The one thing to keep an eye on is Solo and his farm right now. Looking at the fact that he's moving in towards a mechanism early on, he has so much push and aggressive potential, they can just go on in and pretty much do whatever the heck they want. On top of that, Guardian Angel has now been ranked up, so they can pop off this ultimate in this next team fight, and a lot of the damage coming out from Evil Geniuses is physical. The Chen creeps, the Drow Ranger, right-clicks, I mean, in general, even some of the axe damage is composite, so that is going to be a very, very big factor there. But as far as gold goes, it seems like the Beastmaster is a little more focused on the mechanism than Omni Knight himself. He went for the Arcane Boots, Beastmaster did not, so he will have that mech in only 450. Either way, a lot of pressure on the tier 1.
Oh, I'm sorry. Look at this counter whirlwinding from both teams here, trying to drive each other back. As we get the heals getting thrown at Split Earth, going to land on Demon. They're going to get stunned up. There's a Guardian Angel. That's Raw goes down on BCC. Is perfect. Going to get hit there by the Shadow Poison as well. Will get purged there. The demonic purge there from Shadow Demon as well. Throws out another stun as we're going to see the Shallow Grave get thrown in on BCC. Still getting burned down by the Chen creep though. Can he get away there? Will actually get finished off by Shadow Demon. And this looks like this. Well, for all the heal power RoX have, they're getting driven back.
Yeah, now getting bursted down. Testify connects on Enchantress. Now bringing down Von Score. They've committed all their cooldowns. They have nothing left to give, and Dread will fall to the right clicks of the Drow, getting slowed down. Omni Knight in the mix of things does turn it around for a kill on both the Shen and the Darkseer simultaneously, but not going to be able to get out further as one more right click will finish the job here, and Jo gets a nice load of cash from that, even taking the tier 1 for themselves. So really, really good turnaround. Such a back and forth fight. I mean, you don't generally see an 80% HP target with a Shallow Grave active on them, but that's just because so much heal potential from the Omni Knight, from the Dazzle, keeping BZZ up against all odds, but in the end he did, of course, fall, and once he was gone, they were able to clean things up very, very nicely, and EG take a lot of great kills as a result of that. So moving on forward, they really turned things around there, and that definitely sets up Jo. Net worth of 4,500. He does have a Yasha completed, and just going to be able to do a lot of right-click damage as a result.
I am very scared for RoX. The fact that they couldn't take that tower with all the... I mean, they lost all the heroes between all the heals, the ultimates, Guardian Angel. They lost all 5 heroes. They didn't even take the tower, and then they lost their own tower in return. And I think it's just right now, it's coming down to the fact that they don't have the damage output. As soon as Leshrac is forced back, because all of his damage is pretty much contained inside that Diabolical Edict. I think right now RoX need to calm down a little bit and just get that farm on BZZ. It's perfect.
Oh, Roar bottom.
Oh, easy kill. I mean, like I say, I think they need to look for that timing push where Leshrac has some money. Right now, he's too easy to kill, and he doesn't have the damage output, doesn't have that edict, doesn't have the Pulse Nova to be able to spam to cause damage. Because right now, I feel like Drow is actually out damaging him. Yeah, quite heavily.
Just a little bit there, especially with all the creeps that are mixed up. The wall replica was used here, so it's not going to be as important in defending. So right now, dropping down, they got the disruption on the Enchantress, but she's healing up. Demonic Purge is going to help, but only so much. They don't want to dive too deep. They have the Wild Wing to back them up, but right now, Yule taking a lot of hits. The Shallow Grave about to expire. Will they get the heals? No, amazing Split Earth coming out from BZZ. It's not enough, though, with the Shadow Poison just stacking on up. Demon can't really close the distance with the Roar. He can send out a Boar, but it's not going to do too much here. There's going to be a lot of slowing action onto Dread here. Jo barely dodging out the Split Earth here, but the heal keeping Dread alive, and he's still going to drop. Too much right-click damage now. Disruption on top of Solo. Cooldown's active, and they do have the silence up on him as well. Just keep on slowing, keep on right-clicking down with those Frost Arrows. There is Omni Knight with a big heal bomb attempt, but the Guardian Angel is always going to really accomplish right here, and still taking a lot of Shadow Poisons. Beat is caught in the trees. Will use that Hand of God before he does drop down with a couple of right clicks here, as I believe Medallion was used from Dread on top of him. Drow Ranger taking a lot of hits, but still will be able to get out alive. And instead it's going to be Solo and Dread. They're taking so much. Look at all this Shadow Poison. It's going to do so much damage in just a moment here. It is used right when the Repel activates. Instead, a few right clicks could bring down Dread. They just have to close the distance. Solo taking a huge hit from the Shadow Poison as well. Now going in with that Omni... Oh, big heal bomb. Purification active. They turn it around on the Darkseer. Buyback from the Beastmaster. His Roar should be up in just a moment, but right now Demonic Purge comes out on Omni Knight. The Repel will not dispel it, but certainly trapping in with that Sprout will seal his fate. Double kill for Solo once more as he's sitting at 7-2-1. Beastmaster bought back, but not able to get in to use his mechanism or anything along those lines. Actually roared shortly before his death, but either way, RoX.KIS really took that fight away, in my opinion. Cleaned it up very, very nicely despite some early deaths.
I feel like this entire game can be summed up by lull, nope, heal. There's so many close kills that just immediately just get stopped dead by a heal coming out at the right moment. As it looks like the destroyed tower there goes to Leshrac, managed to sneak that one in. Drow was looking for a deny, doesn't quite get it though. But I mean, Drow almost went down Leshrac in the middle of that fight. Unfortunately for Leshrac, he didn't have that Pulse Nova still, couldn't land a Split Earth either. And Chan threw in the big heal there, and then a Magic Wand as well, just finishing things off for Drow, keeping her alive, even with the Urn Charge there. It looks like Yoldo about to get taken out, although throwing up his own Nature's 10 is being slowed massively. That ice arrows are crippling. It's ridiculous. Once somebody gets picked down by them, they just cannot get away.
Exactly. There's just such a massive slow, and not a single uphill miss, fortunately for Jo, means that they could close the distance easily, finish that out. And now they're looking for Roshan. They have all their ultimates back up and available, including this early single point in Wall of Replica, which is not something you see on every Darkseer build-up, but in this one it makes the most sense. There's just too much action to avoid such a powerful teamfight ultimate. So, picking that up, they go for the Roshan. They'll bring it down in just a moment, despite the Medallion of Courage being on the other team. And they're just going to trade out a tier 1 tower for it, which is perfectly a good exchange in their opinion. Surprised that not everybody has a magic stick. Like, the amount of activity in the engagements, and RoX.KIS only having 2 magic wands, 1 magic stick, I feel that Solo and Dread could capitalize on that much more effectively, especially from the Shadow Poison spam. But as a whole, they're still kind of holding the line, and yeah, lull no peel, whether it's the heals or the defensive disruptions that have been coming out time and time again from Fear. Overall, it's just really back and forth. We do see the roar come out on Yoldo, and that's an easy kill there. Solo and Vonskor not even committing to it, instead losing the Shadow Priest as well. Dazzle does get dropped down, and the tier 2 should fall with him.
I see some people in the chat freaking out about why Dazzle is using Shallow Grave. So like, I'm going to say, when you've got heroes that only have like 500 health, I mean, Enchantress have only about 550 health there, and then you've got 800 health on Leshrac, you have to Shallow Grave early because you've got so much damage coming so quickly from EG's side. You've got a huge Test of Faith which can slam out a whole ton of pure damage, Raw Wild Axes, and the Shadow Poison can snap people unexpectedly. He's really got to throw up the Shallow Graves early if someone is starting to get focus fired, so I don't blame him at all for doing that. But as it is, I think something we haven't seen enough of so far is the weave, Dazzle's ultimate. I think that's a big fight turner, and we just haven't seen that enough so far. And it can really force EG to back the hell down.
Yeah, he seems to have wanted to go for a bit of an aggressive build with the Poison Touch. 2 points in Poison Touch is completely pointless. It's just kind of a bridge to get to that 3rd rank, and instead they're just wasting it. Now we do see the weave hit on everybody here, at least a half of the enemy team and all of their own, but Leshrac going to drop before any heal comes out. Test of Faith too quick on damage. Dread going to get dropped as well. A beautiful wall replica placement forces them so that they can barely hold the line in front of their tier 3 here, and even Solo getting Illusion done up. They have a lot of heals, but weren't able to get them off in time, and instead are just getting dropped down quickly. Now the wall replica illusions, the boar, everything ready to go and put pressure on this tier 3, already forcing out the fortification, and the roar is available too. Yes, he repelled, but there's the roar and Vonskor. Can they close the distance? There's the axe. There's going to be a Test of Faith, but a beautiful Guardian Angel keeps him up for now, and he is going to be able to be repelled and walk away from that. So really tough fight, but still taking the tier 3.
I feel like that Guardian Angel should have been dropped earlier. I mean, that Leshrac, see how quick he went down just before then? That is exactly why Vanskor needs to use those Shallow Graves early as soon as somebody looks like they're in danger, because you can get slammed so quickly from those Tests of Fate. As it looks like now, Solo now getting slammed there. He's also been silenced. There we go, Shallow Grave going to keep him alive. Can he throw it in a heal? There we go, heals himself, but still getting drilled down by those Frost Arrows. Finished off there by a returning Wild Axe, and now Drow falling low, but the Chen going to pop the mech there. Will he have an ult up? Doesn't look like it's on cooldown for another 85 seconds, and EG may need to back down here as a buyback there from Omni Knight. Though Chen Beat is going deep.
Wow.
Picks off BZZ.
Wow.
Pays for it with his life.
That was unexpected,
in my opinion.
Yeah, that was pretty unexpected, considering the Dazzle and the Omni Knight nearby. You just don't see those kind of things coming. But yeah, he was able to dive in deep, and on top of Beta's finding that kill there, he did send back Bambo, so they were able to keep him up, and he's able to jump right back on the front lines of the battlefield very quickly. The important thing there was they got the tier 3. That's what they were pushing up for, and now, as long as they go on the high ground, position themselves so they don't have to worry about the uphill miss, they're on open battlefield terms up against RoX.KIS, other than the buyback and the proximity of the tier 4s. They really feel confident about taking the racks next time around, specifically, of course, when Roche comes back up. But right now, JS still has that Aegis, at least for another few minutes. It looks like 2.5 remain on the Aegis before it is indeed reclaimed. And finding out Dread here, bad spot for him, doesn't even have his teleport available. Jumped into farm and instead just finds death. Just too much aggression coming on out. Now Chen is about to hit his level 11, get a second point in Hand of God, and with the fact that they have the Mechanism and Hand of God, there they call it. They've lost too much, and they knew the push lineup didn't work.
I think it was definitely over. I mean, Bambo, I should mention, picked up a Diffusal Blade, and really the only thing keeping them in the fight was the spells coming to Omni Knight, and obviously once the Diffusal Blade is stuck and he pulled out, they lose all reliability from that, so I really blame RoX.KIS from pulling out. I mean, they're about to, next fight, I think they probably would have lost their melee barracks as well, and it just comes down to the fact, I mean, you look at Drow, she's got a Manta style at before 18 minutes in. There's not a lot you can do about that with their lineup. They just have no answer. I mean, obviously, Leshrac can hit pretty hard, but he just doesn't have the farm to keep up with her.
No. Looks like it was maybe going for the Atos or something along those lines. Just doesn't add up, and unfortunately they get locked down. Just really good attempts, but it just didn't pan out. Some good movement. I love the disruptions defensively. The roars were great. The steals from Chen, Beta's stole multiple times over Enchantress's creeps and just frustrated her so darn much with Holy Persuasion going over Enchant, and that of course limits her potential to contribute to the team fight as well. So very chaotic, and a couple of key fights also. One thing that I noticed was the mana pool on Omni Knight, the static mana pool more importantly. Bottle, yes, it gives you a lot, especially with currently a regen rune, but there were multiple times where he could get his full combo off, his Purification, Repel, and then Guardian Angel, but he couldn't get the mechanism on top of that, and that's just because he didn't have enough mana flow. Like, he's sitting at 770, Arcanes will allow you to restore, but even using a second, he's still playing around Bambo, having some fun with the wall, now we'll pay for it, but no, that mana flow, if Omni Knight sends out more than one heal, he suddenly doesn't have enough mana for the mechanism, which is a very, very clutch item in those desperate situations where damage is flying out all across the map. So back and forth, but Evil Geniuses are the ones that they hold the line, they put out the pressure, we see the gold advantage and experience just go inexplicably in their favor, and of course they had the carry potential with Drow, just cleaning it up nicely.
I mean, I don't think it was too bad for his mana, because we've got to keep in mind, it's Arcane Boots are one of those team-oriented things. He did have 3 Arcane Boots on his team. Enchantress as well also had the potential to pick up 1 if she wanted to as well. So I think he was okay in terms of mana. What I think was more concerning, in fact, like you said earlier, no Magic Wand. Why not? I mean, there's so many Shadow Poisons flying out everywhere. Why not? It's 200 gold, even if you don't take, like, fully upgrade the stick to a wand. 200 gold for a stick, that's, what, an extra 100, 200 mana? For your pool,
easily,
definitely worthwhile, I think.
Yeah, but I'm not complaining about like his item buildup of only having Arcane Boots, but I actually realized in 2 team fights he didn't mech at all, and it was because of mana constraints. So it was either bad timing from Dazzle's Arcane Boots, or the fact that he just didn't have that freaking magic stick. It's so amazing of an ability, especially in those early 5v5s. So it looked like the entire team of EG, maybe -1, Sans 1, yeah, the Chen didn't have it, but he doesn't need to spam that hardcore. And his health in general, he was in the backline position, so he wasn't under that much threat. So understandably, he didn't pick it up, but the fact that Omni Knight didn't, and it took so long for the one other member of RoX.KIS to do so, it really was a limiting factor. Anyways, finishing this up here, we're going to see it cleaned up here, the Ancient. Technically, there's a console command I could put in to signify the victory, but either way, it's going to be finished up here in just a moment with JO's right clicks. So, good game, well played to Evil Geniuses, and they'll be going up against Mousesports in the next game following. Back to back to back. Awesome Dota. Awesome games.
Yeah, this one should be ending in just a second. We'll get the next one rolling on. So what's coming up next?
Yeah, that is going to be Evil Geniuses versus Mouse. So that's going to be a really awesome clash of the Titans there, because those two teams have had a lot to prove. That back in the Western qualifiers, they were obviously competing for slots there, and Evil Geniuses, I think, got 4th place all in all, and of course Mousesports took it away. So we'll see if they still can hold the reins of supremacy over Western Dota, at least in the qualifier sense rather than the invitees, or if Evil Geniuses can take it away. Either way, really, really fun match to watch. Really unorthodox, very, very dynamic, but yeah, in the end we see that Evil Geniuses takes it away. Drow and making it work. 6-0 and 8, farming up 111 CS despite all of the action back and forth, and yeah, in the end, Evil Geniuses really well played. So unless you have any other thoughts on the match, I guess we'll get on into the next one.
I mean, we can start rolling the next one, but I find that something I think weird, they didn't put pressure on Drow's lane. I mean, they could have rolled up there and taken her tower a lot earlier and just try to basically push her out, make it harder for her to farm. But in the end, they didn't really do that. They instead focused on the mid lane, which I find is a little bit odd. They could have put a lot more pressure on Drow. But regardless, I think the biggest thing in the end was Drow got farmed, BZZ, Onyx Leshrac did not.
Yeah, exactly. Well, there we go. Thank you guys so much for tuning on in to the Premier League Season 5. This cup here, the Demon Edge Cup, and this is the first cup that we're doing to start off the season. And right now, both EG and Mousesports looking pretty good, but we'll see who's going to stay in it in this next best of one coming up in just a minute here.